150% increase in listings sounds bananas. But then when you look at the actual number, when you drill down into the data, that's 5 listings, like in an entire city.
The market is what it is. It's still competitive. If we price it right and it looks good, homes are flying off the shelf. All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Agent to Investor podcast, where we talk about the agent side of real estate investing. We'll be talking about the successes, the failures, and all in between. My name is Nico Garcia, local real estate agent and investor based out of Montgomery County, Maryland. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Anna Bialik, Northern Virginia realtor and mostly out-of-state investor. And today we're talking about a really important topic, especially to our particular market here in the DMV, and kind of discussing all the social media hype that's been going around lately, combined with a lot of the chaos with the federal government. It's created some interesting stories about our markets.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of our audience here in the DMV have seen things about the housing market, Doge, and everything changing here in the market. So we wanted to make an episode just geared towards that. It'll probably be one of the shorter episodes, but we wanted to, I think it's important to give real-time updates of what's going on here in our markets and in the Virginia side and the Maryland side, and kind of answer any questions and see if, these stories are actually true, or, we'll see what the numbers are saying.
Yeah.
So I know Anna, she brought this up, so she wanted to talk about some of the stories. What are some of the stories that, you've heard out on the social medias?
Yeah. So I think that it started, I'll say it was probably a TikTok trend, because I feel like everything starts in TikTok lately. So
Right.
it was a map. It was a map of the DMV, and it was early February, and there was all these dots everywhere with lots of listings. And the headline, essentially, and I'm paraphrasing, was the DMV, the DC housing market is crashing and everybody is fleeing. And then it started getting picked up by like Yahoo News. I think I saw it in like Newsweek, maybe like other, I not bashing any other like publications, but I started seeing it online on like actual news websites also talking about that. And I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. That's not what I'm seeing in Northern Virginia. And so our MLS, because we have Bright MLS, it kind of goes along the eastern, like northeast. So we're both in it as realtors. They started putting out information to educate us so we could educate the public about what's really going on, because everybody hears the sound bites and they're like, oh my God, everybody is fleeing DC.
Yeah. There's a lot of clickbait, right? I think my mom actually, made one of these stories. So that shows that it's going on all the social media. What is it? What scares people makes a better
Good
story.
news. Yep.
It makes bigger news. So we wanted to kind of touch base and see if that's actually the case. And we'll go into the numbers of what we're seeing in our individual markets, but we also want to make sure we emphasize that every market is different. I'm in Montgomery County, Maryland, and in Prince George's County, Maryland. Anna is in Alexandria. So we'll be talking about our special markets, and then we'll talk about the DMV as a whole. But anybody who's listening in other states and things like that, it is very local. So maybe reach out to an agent or somebody in the industry to see what it actually is saying. So what I wanted to kind of go in first, Anna, is we're going to go talk about your market and what you're seeing. But before we actually go into the numbers, are you seeing a housing crash? Are you seeing, a decline in pricing?
No, I mean, if there's a decline, there are some, I'll say, price adjustments. And a lot of that has to do more so probably with not realistic seller expectations, or maybe with agents that weren't able to communicate to their sellers that pricing strategy or an appropriate pricing strategy. So some of the, I'll say, price reductions I've seen were probably warranted. They were, when you look at the pictures, when you look at the home, when you look at the area, they were usually on properties that were probably overpriced to begin with. But aside from that, I will say, no, I haven't seen a crash, because at least in Alexandria and surrounding, like Arlington, Fairfax County, if you're in one of those like prized markets, because even within our DMV area, there's certain markets that are just hotter than others, things are still moving fast. Like, as an example, JD Vance had a house here in Delray where I live, and it went on the market last Thursday. This is like a $1.6, $1.7 million house. So it's not cheap. It's already under contract. it's been under contract for the last couple of days. So clearly there is still a demand in the market. And I don't think it just went under contract quickly because it's JD Vance's house. I think it's because it's the neighborhood it's in.
Right. Right. And then, I mean, this kind of just goes back into what we talked about during pandemic times where, what is it, the golden handcuffs, and why
Mhm.
there's a inventory shortage in, at least in our markets, and why homes are going relatively quick. I mean, I'm seeing the same thing on our side. And if homes are sitting, it's either the agent gave the seller wrong expectations, or the seller is being stubborn, saw something
Yep.
on low and wants to sell their house way overpriced. But the
Yeah.
ones that are priced at market price are going quick. I've been working with a few buyers myself, and we're still seeing multiple offers. We are seeing competitive offers on single family homes. I have a buyer that just got under contract for a condo where we beat out two other buyers. So it's not like as competitive as it was when the interest rates are at 3% in 2021, and you're going against 10, 15 other offers that are waiving all their contingencies and
Yeah.
things like that. But it's still a shortage, meaning there's still a bigger demand than there is supply. And what does that mean? That means homes are still going to go relatively quick.
Yeah. I mean, a basic necessity of life is the place to live, shelter. That is one of the basic necessities. So someone's always going to need a place to live. And something that I think it's interesting you said. So one, I will say the lesser craziness of the pandemic has been going on for a while. Like there's been lots of cases even before the new administration took over. We were still seeing multiple offers. People may or may not have been waiving contingencies, and it was still very competitive, but not like during the pandemic era. So I guess I want to make sure that folks understand that this competitiveness is not something that just started now. It's something that has been going on since last year. There was still competition for housing because the shortage hasn't gone away for the number of houses. I will also say it's interesting to see multiple offers on a condo because at least what I've seen in Alexandria in our Northern Virginia market is a lot of times condos would sit for a little bit longer because people tend to want to have a home with a yard or just more space. But what I've heard from a lot of folks, at least on my side of the river, is some people are looking for condos because they may have bought a house out in like Stafford or someplace further. And now that they've been called back to work, they don't want to drive several hours and pay hundreds of dollars in tolls every month. So some of them are looking to buy places, smaller places closer into the city, either to move back or to have kind of like a bachelor pad where they can like live and then go home on the weekend because they're not teleworking anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing something similar on our side. I mean, condos are not as competitive as the single families. And I wanted to make that clear. If they look good, like in this particular one, it looked really good and it was priced right. Yeah, there's still multiple offers. So it really case by case, zip code by zip code. So which is what we're actually going to do right now. So the Bright MLS is a source that we have as real estate agents, Anna and I have, and they come out with reports every week, every month to show what's going on in our market as a whole, but also what's going on in our individual markets. So we wanted to kind of give you the numbers, and I wanted to kind of share our screen to tell you what's going on. So we're going to actually start with Anna on the Virginia side. So we're going to go into down here, and I guess you can just dissect it however you want, and I'm going to try and follow you.
But
Um,
yeah, yeah,
can you?
that's fine. Yeah, so I'll just look at like new listings for now because that was kind of what everybody was talking about for these horror stories on social media. And so this just kind of gives you the breakdown. I think this is for the week ending March the 3rd. So this is super recent data. So for Alexandria City, it shows 67 new listings came on the market during the last week, which is a 45% increase, which is like, oh my gosh. And that's what people are focusing in when they talk about these sensationalized stories. And they're like, oh my God, the housing market is crashing. They were like, inventory up 45%. But that's 67 houses. And when you look at the overall population of the city of Alexandria, 67 additional new listings is still well below like pre-pandemic listing levels. And the other thing that I guess people like when I first saw the article or the like headline, I was like, we're going into the spring market. Like during the spring market, we tend to have more listings because people just start moving. People come out of hibernation, military members are getting their orders. government folks are retiring, moving away. Like this is just a very busy area during the spring market naturally. Like the market, it's just part of the market cycles around here.
Mhm.
So 67 homes doesn't hurt my head. And I'll point out, where is it? It's Falls Church City. This is, you can see the numbers, but I wanted to point out Falls Church specifically because when you look at the current year to compared to last year, number of listings, if someone put an article out that said, oh my God, Falls Church listings are up 150%, the market is crashing. Of course, people are going to freak out. 150% increase in listings sounds bananas. It sounds crazy. And I can see where people would panic. But then when you look at the actual number, when you drill down into the data, which is kind of what bugged me a little bit, that people just take the data and manipulate it to create these clickbait, like you were saying, like clickbait titles. If you drill down, that's 5 listings, like in an entire city. So that
Yeah.
means that last year there was like none.
Exactly. So it's kind of relative. You can manipulate the numbers however you want. And like you said, if you see 150% increase, that's when people are like, oh, that means the housing prices are going to go down, everything's going to crash. But being such a small sample size with Fall Church City specifically, that's just showing, hey, it's not really the case. That's, just a small sample size of Virginia in general.
Yeah. And I mean, it's the same thing with a lot of the numbers, like Fairfax City. It's on 29% increase, which sounds a lot, but it's 9 listings. And Fairfax in general, that Fairfax County is a huge county, especially when you break it down. So if you look the next line down where it encompasses Fairfax County, which is massive, it's like the biggest county, I think, next to Loudoun. I think it's bigger than Loudoun in Northern Virginia. Like it's 22% increase. That's 344 homes. So that tells you how many homes, how densely packed in, or how many people live in Fairfax County as a whole, when 344 is just 22%. Like that's a relatively small percentage when you look at the number of listings. And again, that's pretty normal for Fairfax County for as big of a county as it is. And then there's some counties that are like in the negative. Like if you look at Fredericksburg, it's got negative 14.3%. That means there's actually less listings than last year.
Yeah.
So
Really understand the data, and we're going to shift over to the Maryland side, but it's similar to what Anna's talking about. Every county is going to be different based on the how many people live in the county, how many homes are in the county. So, for example, Montgomery County, Maryland, one of the bigger counties here in Maryland. I was born and raised here, so I'm pretty familiar with it. This is showing that it has increased 12%, which I kind of want to harp back to what Anna said was the seasonality in real estate. So this is March. This episode will probably come out mid-March to end March. And like Anna said, it's really seasonal when people are looking to move. During the winter, not a lot of people like to move, and it slows the market a little bit. But if you're seeing more listings and more people willing to move, that's obviously going to increase the inventory. So this is showing a 12% increase from last year, and then negative 2.2% from a week ago.
but look at the
So
list price. Like, sorry, I'm jumping just a column, just like in yours specifically. But if you scrolled up like that 11.2%, like
yeah,
right there, I think that's median list price compared to a year ago. So houses are still selling for over 11% more than they were last year. So that doesn't seem like a crash to me. Like the numbers don't lie. When you look at numbers, it's pretty like black and white.
exactly. It's not crashing. And it just harps on to, just the shortage of inventory. And I guess we mentioned it earlier about the golden handcuffs and what that means. But Hannah, do you mind explaining what that actual term means to the housing market in general, and why it's very important when we're talking about inventory right now?
Yeah, so I guess in the sense that most people think of golden handcuffs, they probably think of like their 9 to 5 job. But in the sense that we're talking about, I think we're talking about the mortgage rate golden handcuffs, which is essentially lots of people own their homes back in during the pandemic when interest rates were 2.5%, 3%. They refinanced. I know I did. I refinanced my primary residence. And a lot of people struggle to let go of that rate. They're like, I basically have free money. Why would I move and sell this house and go jump into a 6 or 7% interest rate? Granted, that rate is creeping down a little bit. So that's an episode for the future, talking about if you bought during higher rates, now might be a good time to go talk to your lender about refinancing. But yeah, the golden handcuffs is essentially the people that are unwilling or just don't want to give up that really good interest rate on their primary residence. And it's free money, so they just rent it out. Or that's what I would do, rent it out and go buy another one.
Yeah, and these are people that, in the past would have been sellers. They
Correct.
are essentially holding on to properties, causing a shortage of what would a home would be out there as an active listing. And instead, like you said, they're either renting it or partnering with somebody else, and it's not becoming an active listing, thus increasing the demand and lowering the supply, meaning prices are going to stay high, at least in our market. And one thing that I also wanted to point out, and I'm not sure if it's actually shown on this, but talking about showings going down, because I think I saw that in a report where showings are down, meaning just that people, buyers aren't out there. But what I'm saying is, and that's mainly because there's just not enough homes for sale. That means less buyers are actually able to see these homes. So that's what I'm seeing, at least here on the Maryland side. It's not the housing crash per se, but it's more of, just not enough homes that these buyers that are ready and able to buy homes, they're just not able to see it. Same thing on the Prince George's side. The that Prince George's County is another big county here in Maryland. Um, and it's not crashing. You don't see, you know, a big percentage change from a year ago. And we're going to obviously continue to monitor all these. We'll give updates as we go on. And this data is delayed after a few weeks. So maybe we will see a change, but I don't see it being much different from what we're seeing right now in
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think showings is a little further to the right. And so I will agree with you. Some of the like showing numbers sometimes have to do with the inventory. I think I will say some of it may have to do with consumer confidence right now. I think there are some buyers that are a little hesitant because I've talked to some people just out and about, people that I knew from when I worked with the Navy, and they're not sure if they're going to have a job like a week from now, a month from now, just with all of the upheaval. So I think there may be a little bit of that. Again, I don't think that signals a market crash. We will have to keep an eye on it, like you said, to see what the implications are. Because I think the job numbers, we're filming this on Friday, March the 7th. The job numbers just came out, which I haven't had a chance to look at, but I know predictions were saying that, unemployment is significantly higher because of all of these reductions that happen. So that shakes consumer confidence. There may be buyers out there that are just like, let me pump the brakes for a couple weeks to see what shakes out before I go out. And then the people that are secure in their job as these rates come down, I have a feeling you're going to see some of those showings, some of those numbers start to tick up again because the government is one of the largest employers in the DMV, but it is not the only large employer in the DMV. There's lots of other big companies that have headquarters here. There's local governments. So it's not like it's not the sole job provider in this area, which
Yeah.
people tend to forget. They think it's DC, it's the government, but there's many more industries here than just the government.
Oh yeah, I have an Amazon warehouse right next to my house. There's a bunch of different things that affect our housing market here locally. So let me ask you, and I know we're
Mhm.
going to give a market update probably in a month or two down the road,
Yep.
based off what we're seeing right now. But what are your expectations, kind of moving forward? What do you predict in your local market?
Yeah. So I will be honest, with all this volatility, we may want to consider doing this more often. Maybe like if folks are seeing this, if they leave it in the comments, like if they would like to see something like this more regularly, at least for the interim, because there is a lot of change going on right now, please let us know because we would love to, we want that feedback to give you what you guys want to hear. So I will say, I think, is there a chance that things might slow down a little bit? There is some potential for that as government employees potentially like leave, but a lot of these employees that are getting laid off, not all of them, are very highly skilled. They have skills that other companies and other employers are very happy to step in and hire them because a lot of companies, a lot of places have had a hard time hiring qualified, good employees. And now that the federal government is releasing a lot of these employees, I don't think it'll take long for a lot of them to decide, okay, I'm going to go work for a contractor. I'm going to go work for Amazon. I'm going to go work for Google or Capital One because they all have like headquarters offices here in the area. So I don't expect it to be a huge downturn. I don't expect a crash to come like people are saying. If there's a more senior federal employee that has decided they're going to take a buyout and they're going to leave early because they don't want to deal with the madness anymore, the odds are they've probably owned their house for quite a while. They probably have a ton of equity built up, and they'll sell it and they'll take the equity and they'll go somewhere else. There's not like an extremist. And if the people are an extremist, if they have equity, they can get a home equity line of credit to keep them afloat until they get a job. And it's a different market than we've seen like during the 2008 crash, like that, like depression era for the housing market. A lot of people didn't have tons of equity that they could fall back on in a house to keep them afloat, which now there's a lot more people with a lot of equity. There's a lot of wealth that people are sitting on or like walking into when they walk into their front door. So I think it's going to stay pretty stable. People need a home. I don't expect the prices to plunge. I don't expect the market to crash, but we'll have to keep an eye on it because who knows what other changes are coming down the pipeline. And one thing I'll throw in real quick, I did a live the other day and someone asked, like, what about foreclosures? Do you think foreclosures or short sales are going to start popping up again? And I said, in my personal opinion, I don't think so. I think the same reason there's so much equity built up in a lot of these homes, not to say that they won't. There will be those occasional people that just can't manage their finances or they have unfortunate circumstances. So they will be there. But a lot of the foreclosures that I've seen, at least on the Virginia side, when they actually make it to the auction block, they sell for almost what you would have paid for it on market because there's not enough houses.
Right. Right. So, I mean, people are behind on payments or things like that if they lose their job, obviously. And we pray for everybody that's being affected for this. But, you know, the numbers are showing. Like, this isn't a housing crash here in the DMV. Every market is local. So check your local market and see if that's actually affecting. And then obviously it's all relative. So what was the county we were talking about where they had 150%?
150? That was Falls Church.
So you can manipulate the numbers however you want. It's easy to make the numbers look like that and make an article to get viral and get clickbait. But speak to a good advisor, an economist or an agent, the hands-on agent like Anna and I that are in the business and talk about what we're seeing. The market is always changing. But a housing crash, in my opinion, based off of what we're seeing in supply and demand, I don't see that coming in terms of pricing crash.
So you're seeing the same thing on the Maryland side as we are on the Virginia side.
Yes, exactly. And I'm in the fields trying to help people buy and sell their homes. So I'm continuously telling anybody who's buying, anybody who's selling, the market is what it is, and it's still competitive if you're able to, on the seller side, if you price your house right. I actually have a listing appointment coming up this weekend. If we price it right and it looks good, homes are flying off the shelf. I think it's important to any of the agents that are listening here, give your clients realistic expectations. Don't guide them thinking that they can get X if you know they can only get, something else. It's always been one of my things whenever I talk to my clients, even if that's not what they really want to hear, just telling them, hey, like, this is what I'm seeing in the market. This is what I can expect that you can get in this market. And then continuously educating. Yeah. And that's why we wanted to make this episode a little bit of a shorter episode, but I think it's important to tell everybody what's going on in our local markets.
Yeah, I did want to add one more thing. And so I wanted to say, like, as an agent, it's good to be educated in all of the different options. And as I was a government employee for almost 20 years, so it's killing me to see what's happening to people I actually know. But talk to one of us if you're in the DMV, talk to a local agent that has maybe a little bit more experience with different types of loan products. Maybe they're an investor savvy agent, because there are options. Like if you are in trouble where maybe you can utilize properties, to try to keep you afloat, like I said, tapping into equity that's there. We can provide creative solutions versus like, if you need to sell your house, of course, we're happy to sell your house. We're agents, but we can also provide other alternatives that may be able to like help you save your home and tap into that equity, or just, even providing resources. Like I've been posting on my social media, like lots of like local, state, and local government resources that are being stood up by a lot, like Fairfax County, Alexandria City, the state of Virginia. They're putting up websites with resources for employees that are suffering through job loss and things that are happening with all this churn, that we can provide those resources to you and become a resource then. If you're not in the DMV and you're going through the same thing, like Nico said, talk to a local agent. And if you don't know one, we have a huge network of agents that we can tap into. So if for some reason you feel like you don't have someone in your area that you can reach out to and have that conversation with, you can reach out to one of us and we can connect you with someone in our network.
100%. 100%. Well, thank you for tuning into this episode of Market Watch, what's going on in the DMV. We'll make sure to continue doing this so we can update you guys from what we're seeing. I'm sure we'll have some effects from the latest, what's going on latest in the DMV. But again, we're not seeing a housing crash, at least right now, in our opinion. But thank you again for tuning to another episode of the Agent to Investor podcast. My name is Nico Garcia, and Garcia Official on all social platforms. And you can reach out to Anna at
I'm Anna by _ realtor on Instagram, or just Anna by everywhere else.
All right, guys. Well, tune into the next episode.
All right. Bye, guys.